two warriors from different eras. One a global icon, the other a modern-day beast. Imagine the silence before the storm, the air heavy with tension as Bruce Lee, the master of speed, precision, and philosophy, faces Tony Jaa, the relentless powerhouse of Muay Thai brutality. No rules, no limits, just pure skill, instinct, and survival. A single movement could decide everything. Bruce Lee, lightning fast, reading every breath. Tony Jaa, explosive, delivering bone-crushing strikes with unstoppable force. This isn't just a fight. It's a clash of styles, a battle of generations, a moment where legend meets raw fury. Who strikes first? Who adapts faster? And when skill meets sheer aggression, who walks away victorious? Speed versus power creates a contrast that instantly defines the entire clash between Bruce Lee and Tony Jaa, turning every second into a test of timing, control, and explosive intent. Bruce Lee's approach to combat was built on the idea that the fastest strike is the one that lands before the opponent even realizes the fight has begun. His movements were not just quick, they were efficient, stripped of unnecessary motion, designed to travel the shortest distance between intention and impact. Every punch, every kick, every shift of his stance carried the philosophy of Jeet Kune Do, where interception becomes the ultimate weapon. He wouldn't wait to react, he would interrupt. His speed was not only physical but mental, reading micro-expressions, predicting patterns, and acting in fractions of a second that most fighters could never perceive. On the opposite side stands Tony Jaa, whose fighting style embodies raw, uncompromising power rooted in Muay Thai. His strikes are not just attacks, they are collisions of bone, muscle, and momentum. Where Bruce Lee seeks to end a fight with surgical precision, Tony Jaa aims to break through defenses with overwhelming force. Every elbow, knee, and kick carries the weight of full-body mechanics, driven by hips, balance, and relentless forward pressure. His speed is different, not necessarily slower, but heavier, more committed, each movement designed to damage rather than simply land. When Tony Jaa throws a strike, it is meant to be felt deeply, to disrupt not just the body but the opponent's confidence. The moment these two styles collide, the question becomes how speed interacts with power under real pressure. Bruce Lee would likely control distance with constant movement, never staying in one place long enough to be targeted. His footwork would be light, almost unpredictable, shifting angles, creating openings and closing them before Tony Jaa could fully capitalize. Every time Tony steps forward, Bruce would already be repositioning, testing reactions, probing defenses with quick jabs and low kicks. The goal would not be immediate domination but gradual control, forcing Tony Jaa to chase, to commit, to expose himself. Tony Jaa, however, thrives in situations where distance collapses. His power becomes most dangerous when he closes the gap, when there is no room left to evade. In those moments, speed alone may not be enough. Bruce Lee's quick strikes might land first, but Tony Jaa's durability and conditioning allow him to absorb impact and continue advancing. The difference lies in intention. Bruce strikes to interrupt and control. Tony strikes to overwhelm and finish. If Tony manages to cut off Bruce's movement and trap him within range, the fight shifts dramatically. The space Bruce relies on disappears, replaced by a brutal exchange where power begins to dominate. Speed also carries a psychological advantage. Bruce Lee's rapid attacks can create hesitation, forcing Tony Jaa to second-guess his timing. A fighter who hesitates loses rhythm, and without rhythm, even powerful strikes lose effectiveness. Bruce would likely exploit this by mixing feints with real attacks, making it difficult to distinguish between the two. A slight shoulder twitch could trigger a defensive reaction, opening a path for a real strike. This constant mental pressure builds over time, wearing down even the most aggressive opponent. Yet Tony Jaa's power introduces a different kind of psychological threat. Knowing that a single clean strike could change everything forces Bruce Lee to remain perfectly disciplined. There is no room for error, no tolerance for misjudgment. Even the fastest fighter must respect the danger of raw force. Tony's presence, Alone, his stance, his forward movement, his willingness to absorb and deliver punishment creates a sense of inevitability. He does not need to be faster if he can corner, if he can anticipate where Bruce will move and meet him there with crushing impact. The contrast extends into how each fighter generates momentum. Bruce Lee's speed allows him to chain techniques seamlessly, flowing from one strike to another without pause. His attacks are not isolated. They are connected, each one setting up the next. This creates a rhythm that is difficult to break, especially when combined with his ability to adapt in real time. If a punch is blocked, it immediately becomes a feint for a kick. If a kick misses, it transitions into a repositioning step. His entire system is built on continuity. Tony Jaa's power, on the other hand, builds through commitment. His strikes are deliberate, each one carrying the intention to end the exchange. While this may reduce the frequency of his attacks compared to Bruce Lee, it increases their significance. Every strike matters. Every movement has weight. When he throws a EDE knee or an elbow, it is not part of a chain, it is a statement. If it lands cleanly, it can shift the entire fight in an instant. The environment of the fight also influences how speed and power interact. In open space, Bruce Lee's speed becomes a dominant factor. He can move freely, control distance, and dictate the pace. In tighter spaces, Tony Jaa's power gains an advantage. Reduced movement options limit Bruce's ability to evade, increasing the likelihood of close-range exchanges where Muay Thai techniques excel. The battle then becomes one of positioning, each fighter trying to pull the other into their preferred range. Endurance adds another layer to the dynamic. Speed requires energy, constant movement, and mental focus. Over time, maintaining that level of precision can become exhausting. Power, while also demanding, relies more on timing and opportunity. Tony Jaa can conserve energy between explosive bursts, waiting for the right moment to strike. If the fight extends, the balance between speed and power may shift, depending on who manages their resources more effectively. Ultimately, the clash between Bruce Lee's speed and Tony Jaa's power is not about which attribute is superior, but how each fighter uses their strength to exploit the other's weakness. Speed can neutralize power by preventing it from landing, while power can overcome speed by limiting movement and forcing confrontation. Every exchange becomes a question of timing, whether speed can act before power arrives, or whether power can intercept and dominate before speed escapes. Fighting philosophy becomes the invisible battlefield where Bruce Lee and Tony Jaa truly collide, shaping not just how they move, but why they move the way they do. Bruce Lee's Jeet Kune Do was never meant to be a fixed style. It was a rejection of rigid systems, a philosophy built on adaptability, efficiency, and personal expression. He believed that traditional martial arts often trapped fighters in patterns, limiting their ability to respond freely in real combat. Instead of memorizing sequences, Bruce focused on principles, directness, simplicity, and the ability to intercept an opponent's attack before it fully develops. His famous idea of "be like water" reflects this perfectly: fluid, formless, capable of adapting to any situation without resistance or hesitation. Tony Jaa's foundation in Muay Thai represents almost the opposite approach, rooted deeply in tradition, discipline, and time-tested techniques. Muay Thai is not just a fighting style, it is a cultural legacy, refined over centuries into one of the most brutal and effective striking systems in the world. Every movement has been sharpened through real combat experience, from the precision of elbows to the devastating impact of knees. Unlike Jeet Kune Do, which encourages breaking away from structure, Muay Thai thrives within its structure, relying on repetition, conditioning, and mastery of core techniques. Tony Jaa embodies this philosophy through his relentless training and his ability to execute these techniques with explosive power and accuracy. When these two philosophies meet, the contrast becomes immediately clear. Bruce Lee would not approach the fight with a predetermined plan. Instead, he would observe, analyze, and adapt in real time, treating the encounter as a constantly evolving puzzle. His goal would be to find weaknesses in Tony Jaa's rhythm, to exploit habits, and to disrupt the flow of Muay Thai's structured offense. He would likely avoid engaging in prolonged exchanges, preferring quick, precise strikes that minimize risk while maximizing effectiveness. Every movement would serve a purpose, eliminating unnecessary motion and focusing only on what works in the moment. Tony Jaa, on the other hand, would enter the fight with a clear framework of techniques that have been proven in countless battles. His philosophy emphasizes endurance, resilience, and the ability to dominate through pressure. He would not need to adapt in the same fluid way as Bruce Lee because his system already provides answers to most situations. The guard, the clinch, the combinations of strikes, all of these form a cohesive strategy designed to break down opponents over time. Rather than seeking constant variation, Tony Jaa would rely on consistency, trusting in the strength of his training and the effectiveness of his techniques. One of the most significant differences lies in how each fighter views the concept of interception. For Bruce Lee, interception is the core of combat. He believed that the best defense is to attack at the exact moment the opponent initiates their movement, cutting them off before their technique can fully develop. This requires not only speed but also deep understanding of timing and distance. Bruce would likely focus on reading Tony Jaa's body language, identifying the subtle cues that signal an incoming strike, and responding instantly with a counter that disrupts the attack. In contrast, Muay Thai does not prioritize interception in the same philosophical sense. Instead, it emphasizes resilience and the ability to absorb and respond. Tony Jaa would be trained to withstand incoming strikes while maintaining his composure, using blocks, checks, and counters to neutralize attacks. His response would not necessarily be immediate interception but rather controlled retaliation. This creates a different rhythm in the fight, where Bruce Lee's attempts to disrupt may be met with calculated resistance rather than hesitation. Another key difference is how each philosophy handles the idea of limitation. Bruce Lee rejected the notion of being confined to a single style, believing that true mastery comes from understanding all forms and using what is necessary. Jeet Kune Do encourages fighters to borrow techniques from various disciplines, creating a personalized system that evolves over time. This openness allows Bruce to adapt to unfamiliar situations, making him unpredictable and difficult to read. Tony Jaa's approach, while rooted in tradition, does not necessarily lack adaptability, but it operates within defined boundaries. Muay Thai has its own range of techniques, and mastery comes from refining these to perfection rather than expanding beyond them. This creates a different kind of strength, one based on depth rather than breadth. Tony Jaa may not use as many varied techniques as Bruce Lee, but the ones he does use are executed with exceptional precision and power. The philosophies also diverge in their approach to distance and engagement. Bruce Lee's system emphasizes controlling distance to maintain advantage. He would likely stay just outside Tony Jaa's effective range, using quick strikes to probe and disrupt while avoiding prolonged contact. His footwork would be dynamic, constantly adjusting to maintain optimal positioning. This reflects his belief in efficiency: engage only when necessary, and disengage before the opponent can respond effectively. Tony Jaa's philosophy, however, thrives on closing distance and maintaining pressure. Muay Thai is most effective at mid to close range, where its full arsenal of strikes can be utilized. Tony would aim to reduce the space between himself and Bruce Lee, forcing exchanges where his power can be brought to bear. His movement would be more direct, less focused on evasion, and more on advancing, cutting off escape routes, and imposing his will on the fight. The concept of economy of motion also highlights the philosophical contrast. Bruce Lee believed in eliminating all unnecessary movement, reducing techniques to their most essential form. This not only increases speed, but also reduces energy expenditure, allowing for sustained performance over time. Every action is streamlined, every movement purposeful. Tony Jaa's movements, while efficient in their own way, often involve larger, more forceful motions designed to generate maximum power. The rotation of the hips, the swing of the leg, the drive of the knee, all of these require significant energy but produce devastating results. This reflects a different kind of efficiency, where the goal is not minimal movement, but maximum impact. Psychologically, the philosophies influence how each fighter approaches the mental aspect of combat. Bruce Lee's adaptability gives him a sense of freedom, allowing him to remain calm and responsive under pressure. He is not bound by expectations, which can make him more difficult to predict. His mindset is one of exploration, constantly seeking the most effective solution in the moment. Tony Jaa's mindset, shaped by the discipline of Muay Thai, is one of endurance and determination. He is trained to push through adversity, to maintain focus even when under attack. His confidence comes from repetition and conditioning, knowing that his techniques have been tested and proven. This creates a different kind of mental resilience, one that thrives on persistence and the ability to outlast opponents. As the fight progresses, these philosophies would continue to influence every exchange. Bruce Lee's constant adaptation would challenge Tony Jaa's structure, forcing him to adjust in ways that may not come naturally within the framework of Muay Thai. At the same time, Tony Jaa's relentless pressure and powerful strikes would test the limits of Bruce Lee's adaptability, pushing him to maintain perfect execution under increasing stress. The clash between Jeet Kune Do and Muay Thai is not simply a matter of style versus style, but philosophy versus philosophy. It is a question of whether fluid adaptability can overcome disciplined structure, or whether the strength of tradition can withstand the unpredictability of innovation. Each approach offers its own advantages and challenges, creating a dynamic interplay that defines the entire encounter. Experience and realism shape the foundation of how Bruce Lee and Tony Jaa would approach a confrontation, influencing not only their techniques but the way they perceive danger, timing, and opportunity. Bruce Lee's understanding of combat was deeply rooted in real-world application. He constantly questioned whether traditional martial arts truly prepared someone for an unpredictable fight outside controlled environments. His training emphasized practicality, what works under pressure, what can be executed instantly, and what eliminates unnecessary risk. He believed that forms, rituals, and rigid patterns often created a false sense of security, and he dedicated himself to stripping combat down to its raw essentials. Every movement he practiced had to serve a direct purpose in a real fight, not just look impressive. Tony Jaa, while widely recognized for his cinematic performances, carries a level of realism that goes beyond choreography. His Muay Thai foundation is one of the most battle-tested striking systems in the world, developed through actual competition and refined through generations of fighters. The techniques he uses are not theoretical. They are proven in full-contact environments where mistakes have immediate consequences. Elbows, knees, clinch work, and low kicks are all designed to inflict real damage, not just score points or entertain an audience. Even though Tony Jaa performs in films, the core of his skill set remains grounded in authentic combat principles. The difference in experience becomes evident when considering how each fighter interprets a fight scenario. Bruce Lee approached combat as an ever-changing problem that required constant awareness and adaptability. He would not rely on rehearsed sequences or predictable patterns. Instead, he would analyze the opponent's behavior in real time, making decisions based on subtle cues such as weight distribution, breathing patterns, and shifts in posture. His experience was not built on formal competition records but on deep study, cross-training, and a relentless pursuit of efficiency. He sparred with practitioners from different disciplines, testing ideas and refining his approach to ensure it could hold up under pressure. Tony Jaa's experience, while influenced by performance, is closely tied to a structured system that has been validated in competitive settings. Muay Thai fighters train under conditions that simulate real combat intensity, full contact, resistance, and the expectation of physical punishment. This creates a different kind of realism, one that conditions the body and mind to operate effectively, even when under extreme stress. Tony Jaa's ability to execute powerful strikes repeatedly, maintain balance, and absorb impact reflects this background. His movements are not just practiced, they are ingrained through repetition and conditioning. Realism also affects how each fighter handles unpredictability. Bruce Lee's philosophy was built around the idea that a real fight is chaotic and cannot be fully anticipated. He trained to remain flexible, to adjust instantly when situations change, and to avoid being locked into any single approach. This gives him an advantage in unfamiliar scenarios, where the ability to improvise becomes crucial. He would likely be comfortable operating outside conventional rules, adapting to whatever Tony Jaa brings into the fight. Tony Jaa, while operating within the framework of Muay Thai, is not necessarily limited by it. Real combat training in Muay Thai includes dealing with aggressive opponents, managing distance, and responding to unexpected attacks. However, the structure of the system means that his responses may follow certain patterns, especially under pressure. This can be both a strength and a limitation. The predictability of trained responses can make them reliable, but it can also create opportunities for a highly adaptive opponent like Bruce Lee to anticipate and counter them. Another aspect of realism lies in how each fighter deals with damage. Bruce Lee's approach emphasizes avoiding damage altogether. His speed, timing, and interception are designed to prevent the opponent from landing clean strikes. This reflects a realistic understanding that in a real fight, even a single well-placed blow can have serious consequences. His goal would be to control the encounter in such a way that he minimizes risk while maximizing effectiveness. Tony Jaa's experience in Muay Thai includes accepting and managing damage as part of the fight. Fighters are trained to continue operating even after taking hits, to maintain composure and effectiveness despite physical pain. This creates a different kind of realism, one where resilience becomes just as important as technique. Tony Jaa would not be easily deterred by a few quick strikes from Bruce Lee. Instead, he would likely continue advancing, using his conditioning to push through and create opportunities for his own attacks. The environment of the fight further highlights the contrast in experience. Bruce Lee's philosophy is adaptable to various settings, whether it's an open space, a confined area, or an unpredictable environment. He trained to use whatever is available, to adjust his movement based on surroundings, and to remain effective, regardless of conditions. This versatility is a key component of his realism. Tony Jaa's experience, while highly effective in structured environments like rings or controlled spaces, may require slight adjustments in less predictable settings. However, Muay Thai's emphasis on balance, control, and powerful strikes still translates well into different environments. His ability to maintain stability and generate force does not depend heavily on specific conditions, making his skill set broadly applicable. The mental aspect of experience also plays a critical role. Bruce Lee's constant questioning and refinement of his methods create a mindset that is open, analytical, and highly responsive. He does not rely on assumptions or fixed strategies, which allows him to remain calm and adaptable under pressure. His realism comes from understanding that no plan survives contact with an opponent, and that flexibility is the key to survival. Tony Jaa's mental conditioning, shaped by the discipline of Muay Thai, focuses on endurance, focus, and the ability to push through adversity. His experience teaches him to stay composed even in the face of aggression, to trust his training, and to maintain pressure until the opponent breaks. This creates a different kind of mental strength, one that is rooted in persistence and resilience. When these two forms of experience and realism collide, the fight becomes a test of adaptability versus conditioning. Bruce Lee's ability to read and respond may allow him to control the pace and direction of the fight, while Tony Jaa's durability and proven techniques ensure that he remains a constant threat. Every exchange would reflect this contrast, with Bruce seeking to outthink and outmaneuver, and Tony aiming to outlast and overpower. Endurance and aggression create a relentless dynamic between Bruce Lee and Tony Jaa, shaping how the fight unfolds over time and how each fighter responds to mounting pressure. Bruce Lee's endurance was not just physical stamina, but a combination of efficiency, breath control, and mental clarity. He trained his body to move without wasted energy, ensuring that every action served a purpose. His philosophy of economy of motion meant that he could maintain a high level of performance without exhausting himself unnecessarily. Instead of relying on brute force, he conserved energy through precision, allowing him to stay sharp and responsive, even as the fight extended. Tony Jaa's endurance is built through the demanding conditioning of Muay Thai, where fighters are pushed to their physical limits through intense training routines. Long sessions of pad work, Clinch drills and sparring develop not only stamina but also the ability to function under fatigue. His endurance is not subtle. It is forged through repetition and resilience, enabling him to continue delivering powerful strikes even when tired. This creates a different kind of pressure, where the opponent must constantly deal with the threat of heavy attacks regardless of how long the fight lasts. Aggression becomes the driving force behind how Tony Jaa applies his endurance. He does not wait passively for opportunities. He creates them through forward movement and constant pressure. Every step he takes is deliberate, aimed at reducing distance and forcing engagement. His aggression is not reckless but controlled, guided by the principles of Muay Thai. He uses combinations of strikes to break down defenses, targeting different areas of the body to weaken his opponent over time. This sustained pressure can be overwhelming, especially for someone who relies on space and timing. Bruce Lee's approach to aggression is more strategic and measured. He does not seek to overwhelm through constant attack, but rather through precise, well-timed interventions. His aggression is expressed in bursts, moments where he identifies an opening and exploits it instantly. This allows him to maintain control without overcommitting, reducing the risk of counterattacks. His ability to switch between offense and defense seamlessly makes his aggression less predictable and more difficult to counter. As the fight progresses, the interplay between endurance and aggression becomes increasingly significant. Tony Jaa's continuous pressure forces Bruce Lee to remain active, constantly moving, adjusting, and responding. This can gradually wear down even the most efficient fighter, as maintaining high-speed movement requires energy and focus. The longer Tony sustains his aggression, the greater the demand on Bruce's endurance, testing his ability to remain precise under fatigue. At the same time, Bruce Lee's efficiency acts as a counterbalance to Tony Jaa's aggression. By minimizing unnecessary movement and avoiding prolonged exchanges, he reduces the energy cost of defending and attacking. His goal would be to make Tony expend more energy than necessary, using movement and timing to frustrate and tire him out. Every missed strike from Tony represents wasted effort, gradually diminishing the effectiveness of his aggression. The psychological aspect of aggression also plays a crucial role. Tony Jaa's forward pressure can create a sense of urgency, forcing Bruce Lee to react quickly and potentially make mistakes. The constant threat of powerful strikes demands attention, leaving little room for hesitation. This kind of pressure can disrupt rhythm and concentration, especially if it is sustained over time. Bruce Lee counters this with composure and control. His calm, analytical mindset allows him to process information quickly and make decisions without panic. Instead of being overwhelmed by aggression, he uses it as data, reading patterns and identifying openings. His ability to remain mentally sharp under pressure is a key component of his endurance, enabling him to sustain performance even in challenging situations. Another layer to this dynamic is how each fighter recovers during the fight. Bruce Lee's approach allows for micro-recoveries, brief moments where he resets his position, controls his breathing, and regains focus without fully disengaging. These moments are subtle but effective, helping him maintain endurance over time. Tony Jaa's recovery is more physical, relying on his conditioning to push through fatigue. Even when tired, his training enables him to continue delivering strikes with significant power. This creates a constant threat as his aggression does not diminish easily. However, the energy cost of maintaining such intensity can accumulate, especially if his attacks are consistently evaded or countered. The balance between endurance and aggression ultimately shapes the tempo of the fight. If Tony Jaa successfully imposes his pace, the fight becomes a test of survival for Bruce Lee, requiring him to endure sustained pressure while looking for opportunities to counter. If Bruce Lee controls the tempo, the fight becomes a strategic battle where Tony must chase and adapt, potentially expending more energy in the process. The contrast between tactical patience and relentless forward pressure defines every exchange. Bruce Lee's patience allows him to wait for the right moment, conserving energy and avoiding unnecessary risks. Tony Jaa's aggression forces action, pushing the fight forward and reducing the time available for decision-making. This tension creates a dynamic where each fighter is constantly trying to impose their preferred rhythm on the other. Over time, small advantages in endurance or aggression can compound, influencing the overall outcome. A slight decrease in speed, a moment of hesitation, or a missed opportunity can shift momentum. The ability to maintain focus, manage energy, and apply pressure effectively becomes increasingly important as the fight continues. The interaction between these elements highlights the deeper complexity of combat, where physical attributes are intertwined with strategy and mindset. Endurance is not just about lasting longer, and aggression is not just about attacking more. It is about how these qualities are used, how they influence decisions, and how they shape the flow of the fight. From moment to moment,